Hey folks, Dale Davidson, the Dear VA guy, coming at you today. Hey, got a jam-packed video for you today. We're going to be talking about the most awarded and top 7 VA disability compensation claims. Now, we're going to be talking about them, although we're only going to be going over one in particular, but in coming videos, we're going to be talking about the others in more detail, so stay tuned. Okay? So, the most commonly awarded and top 7 VA disability claims are generally related to specific medical conditions, okay, or injuries that you as a veteran commonly experienced during your military career or your military service. The exact numbers can vary from over time depending upon various factors. So these are the most frequently awarded VA disability compensation claims, okay? The first is post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's the one we're going to be going in a deep dive today. Briefly, PTSD is a mental health condition that can develop after experiencing a traumatic event. We call them stressors. It's prevalent among many veterans who have experienced combat, military sexual trauma, or some other traumatic event during their military service. And again, today we're going to be unpacking what you must have to succeed with a PTSD claim. So again, follow-up videos will dissect these other 6. Number 2, musculoskeletal disorders. Okay, so this category includes conditions such as back pains, joint disorders, other musculoskeletal injuries that veterans often develop due to physical demands of military service. What would come to mind here is jumping out of perfectly good airplanes and all of a sudden you've got bad knees now. You've got tinnitus and hearing loss as the third. That's exposure to loud noises, explosions, and other occupational hazards that can lead to tinnitus, ringing in the ears, and hearing loss among veterans. So if you were on a mortar crew or you were on an artillery or a tank or something like that and you didn't have hearing protection. Number 4, scars and burns. A veteran who has visible scars or disfigurements resulting from injuries from burns sustained during their service may qualify for disability comp. Okay, you see a lot of those from the Gulf War if they were in some IED explosion and their faces were burned or disfigured in some way. Then you got TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. TBIs can result from exposure to a blast, IEDs, okay, falls or other head injuries during military service, and it can range from a mild concussion to severe brain damage. Number 6, the Gulf War syndrome. Veterans who served during the Gulf War and experience a combination of symptoms such as fatigue, joint pain, headaches, cognitive difficulties may qualify for compensation under the Gulf War syndrome. Number 7, residuals from Agent Orange. Now, I've done several videos on chemical exposure, and these are basically veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange, which we all know is a herbicide used during the Vietnam War. These individuals have suffered associated health conditions such as certain cancers, diabetes, and other chronic diseases that may be eligible for compensation. Now, I mentioned Vietnam War. You didn't have to actually be in Vietnam to have been exposed. You could have been in Thailand, and there's some other places too. Those are the most 7 commonly awarded VA disability claims based upon the prevalence of the conditions among veterans. So please note that it's important that eligibility compensation depends on specific circumstances of you, the veteran, of your service and your medical conditions, and each claim is evaluated individually by the VA based upon the evidence that you provide. Let's talk about winning a PTSD claim with the VA. Okay, what does it require? It requires a lot of preparation. Okay, it requires preparation, documentation, and persistence. This is a difficult one to get. Okay, providing clear and credible evidence of the traumatic event and the impact on your mental health and the connection to your military service is essential. So working with knowledgeable professionals and organizations can strengthen your claim and improve your chances of receiving this disability benefit you deserve. And I'm not talking about necessarily working with somebody like me. I'm talking about a licensed clinical psychologist or licensed clinical psychiatrist who is well versed in diagnosing PTSD claims. Okay? Because you're going to go through the C&P exams with the VA, and they're not necessarily going to side with you. So we got to have our own evidence here. All right? Winning a PTSD claim with the VA involves several key steps, okay, that we're going to go over, and considerations. Now, the PTSD claims can be complex due to the nature of the condition and the need for substantial evidence. And I'm talking about substantial medical evidence to establish a connection between PTSD, your PTSD, and your military service. That's that nexus. That's a recurring theme throughout my videos. You got to have a nexus. You got to have a connection between your disability and your military service. So here are some steps that we use to increase your chances for success. Now, establishing service connection. Documentation of your stressor. Provide evidence of the traumatic events, the stressors that we call them, that caused or aggravated your PTSD. This could include combat experiences, military sexual trauma, witnessing traumatic events. Maybe you get some kind of supporting documentation from fellow soldiers or service members' records in order to strengthen your claim. Now, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to mention sexual trauma here because that's not reported a lot. And that's kind of a lot of times swept under the rug. But it's very traumatic if you've experienced that. If you have experienced that, number one, you need to get help. But number two, when we're asking to put together your stressor statement, we don't necessarily enjoy it. We don't want you to relive it. But to a certain extent, you're going to have to relive it in order for us to pull out the traumatic event and how it has affected you. And so, just know if you've suffered a sexual trauma, get help, and we can point you in the right direction. It's a difficult thing, but it's something that needs to be addressed, and we can help you. So now we've got our stressor. Where's our medical evidence? Okay, obtain medical records that document your PTSD symptoms. Well, maybe you don't have anything in your C-file. That doesn't mean that you don't have those symptoms, but your military records would include where you were, right? I mean, maybe you were in Baghdad and saw a lot of trauma, combat, whatever it was. Your military records would help prove your stressor, and then we, or in conjunction with you, of course, would look to get the medical evidence and medical records from psychologists and psychiatrists, again, who are trained in diagnosing PTSD to bolster your claim. Again, I don't think we can count on the VA to be nice and say, sure, Dale's got PTSD. As we have experienced it, it generally doesn't work that way. So we got to have our own medical evidence here. We got to provide detailed and credible evidence, whatever it is. Personal statements. Write a detailed statement describing how the traumatic events affected you physically, emotionally, socially. Maybe say, well, I cannot interact with anybody of Middle Eastern descent. Okay? Or I cannot even go out in public. I can't, the July 4th fireworks, I can't handle loud noises. I can't handle crowd. I am socially withdrawn. because of my PTSD. Whatever it is, let's explain the symptoms, okay, and their severity and how they impact your daily life, okay? How does it impact your daily life? How does it impact your work, your relationships? Well, I can't have relations with my spouse, or because of my PTSD, I can't even have a relationship, whatever it may be, okay? Buddy statements are a good way to bolster your personal statement. If you've kept in touch with your friends from your unit, okay, and if not, boy, Google it, go on Facebook. They've got all these different units out there that have Facebook pages, and so you can find them. I'm sure you could find somebody that can say, yeah, I remember when you got blown out of that Bradley, and all they did was dust you off and you went about your business. So, yeah, I remember that incident, okay? Now, you're going to have to go through a VA examination, the C&P exam. The VA is going to schedule you for the C&P exam with a VA psychologist or psychiatrist. Now, the VA is going to evaluate your symptoms and assess whether they meet the criteria for PTSD according to the VA guidelines. Don't rely on the VA guidelines. Don't rely on the VA C&P exam. You're better off going out and getting your own psychologist or psychiatrist to evaluate for PTSD. Again, get your own independent medical opinion. I know it will cost you a little bit of money, but it's well worth it. Because guess what? What's going to happen is the VA is going to come up and say, well, Dale doesn't have PTSD. Well, yes, he does, according to our examination from a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist. We disagree with the VA's assessment, and here's our evidence. Okay? Always seek an independent medical opinion. Provide continuity of symptoms. Okay? What does that mean? You got to be consistent. Show that your symptoms of PTSD have been continuous since the event and have not significantly improved over time. Document changes in symptoms and treatments received. For instance, if you've got PTSD, say, well, I have, when I got out of the service, I came home and I withdrew from my family. I don't go to family reunions. I don't go on family vacations. I stay in my room. Whatever it is, show that because of your traumatic event, your stressor, that your symptoms have been continuous throughout the time being. Continuity of symptoms. Legal and advocacy assistance. Now, the veteran service organizations out there, they're good folks, okay? Go to them, okay, and get their help. Go to the Disabled American Veterans, the DAV, VFW, American Legion, whatever. They can help provide support, guidance, and representation throughout the claims process. But if you're not getting satisfaction, for whatever reason, they filed it and you were denied, or you feel that this case is too complex for a VSO, then by all means contact somebody like us or another veterans law attorney who specializes in VA disability claims, because they and we can provide valuable expertise and representation. We know what to provide to the VA in order to increase your success for your claim. If your claim is denied, or if you disagree with the rating assigned, you always have the right to appeal. You can request a higher level review, submit new evidence, or you can appeal directly to the Board of Veterans Appeals. But it's never over. If you feel that you're 100% and they only gave you 40%, by all means, fight for the 100%. Hey folks, thank you for tuning in to this video. Hey, stay tuned to get the other 6 VA disability claims videos in the near future. Hey, but check out this video. Why are PTSD claims so hard to get approved? That'll give you a lot of information and help you out. Until next time, be blessed.